farmers market, regenerative agriculture, health. I mean, all of it has brought me to the oldest water buffalo farm in the United States, and it just happens to be right here in Arkansas, visiting with Turkey Creek and their incredible setup. I'm excited to see what the future has in store for this incredible animal. All right, Tom, so excited to be here and getting to see these animals. We talked for a couple years ago, but finally made it down. Why did you go from, there he is.
There he is.
I mean, like
showstopper.
Showstopper.
Let me get behind him here, I guess. All right. You know what happens when you start filming? The water buffalo want part of the deal.
I mean, he just straight up didn't he? I love it.
So yeah,
I got a pole. At least I can hide behind it, maybe.
We glad to have you up here finally, and
yeah. So what was that transition from cattle to water buffalo?
Well, it was back in the early '90s, and we were involved with the water buffalo, and we're starting to get into the milking a bit, and we started getting so many different groups that it was kind of difficult to keep everybody spread out in the different pastures. And we liked the buffalo a lot. Got involved with the buffalo in '85, and we have a World Buffalo Congress every 3 years. It's through the IBF, the International Buffalo Federation. And we went to several of them, and people were saying, well, you don't have the right buffalo in the United States for milking, you can't milk them, and this and that. And it kind of piqued our curiosity, and in the mid-90s, about 92, 93, we decided, well, you know, let's try to milk some animals type thing, see if we can do it, see what happens. Or we get milk for the calves, why can't we get milk for ourselves? And so we started milking the buffalo then type thing, but we had been in business for about 10 years before that, and we've really like the animal. They're easy keepers. They go very good with the ranch and rotational grazing. They're very easy to move. We just call them, open a gate, and they're there.
And they're very quiet.
Yes.
I've been snuck up a couple times since we've been out here. That's the regenerative agriculture is definitely something that I'm very passionate about. And Jordan Rubin, who got his very first water buffalo from y'all, you know, said to say hello. How are you seeing them incorporated into this regenerative agriculture movement?
Well, I think they're just a perfect fit. It's just like a jigsaw puzzle where they it's just amazing. You know, every farmer's a little different, and they do things a little differently, and they have a different way of doing things. Sometimes it's part of the land, it's the geographic location, or the terrain, or the amount of precept, or whatnot. So everybody does things a little differently. But with the water buffalo, they're fine with it. And you know, there's so many different things they can do that they
just
can
whatever it is, they're good. They're hardy. They live a long time.
25 years plus. Wow. They can have 20 calves. So if it's just a mom and pop homesteader, and they want animal for help around the homestead, and they want some milk, and eventually when maybe one of them calves and they have a steer or a bull, they can have a freezer full of meat type thing. Low cholesterol, high protein meat. It's they call it the meat of the future because it's so healthy type thing. So as far as the regenerative ag, they just like they have been domesticated for over 5,000 years, they have fit into the picture one way or the other.
So if we just kind of look at how, you know, they're raised in Asia, right? That's I mean, they were doing regenerative ag before we started calling it that, right?
You're right, right. Well, that's what I was getting at. They've been in the program for a long time, and so it just depends on how the farmer's working and what they're doing and how they're doing it, but they can fit in the puzzle fairly well.
I've just been enamored with them for a while, and I love how they seem to just be hardier than any of the other livestock that we genuinely think of.
Yes, we say you'll never see a sick buffalo, but if you do see a sick buffalo, he's a sick buffalo.
Yeah.
So dystocia is very rare with them, with birthing problems we don't have. They have the long lives that, like we mentioned, but generally they don't get sick. They're very hardy. They say they're one of the most adaptable animals in the world. We have them all over South America, from the highlands to the mountains. We have them spreading out through Europe now. We have them up in Canada. Of course, they're in the Philippines and all throughout Asia. They're in the Middle East. They have them in Egypt, strangely enough, with not much water and whatnot. They're called water buffalo, but they don't have to have water. But they do, in certain conditions, maybe need some type of a shade or some type of thing.
So they can handle dry, cold, hot, humid,
Yes,
like all
and,
climates.
And like in South America, in India, where they have wet 2 seasons, wet and dry, buffalo have ability to gain weight when it's wet. And that's a big factor in South America, where a lot of the bovine species, they have a hard time surviving or maintaining any type of weight during the rainy season.
It's really, I think, probably an underappreciated animal here in the United States for sure. What do you think is maybe like the most interesting fact about water buffalo that maybe nobody really knows?
Well, there's so many of them. They do have their stealth mode.
They do.
If you're working in a pasture and working on a fence, they have ability to come right up on you and silently and nudge you a little bit and say, give me a little love. Water buffalo eat at night as well as during the day. So a lot of animals lay down during the day and whatnot, and that's it. But buffalo will go out and eat during the night. Buffalo have the ability to maintain themselves underwater. So places like in the Amazon, when it's all completely flooded out, they'll build these huge platforms, above water, and the ramps to go down into the water. And the platforms are so the buffalo can get out of the water and rest. And then when it's time for them to go eat, they can go back down into the water. They can submerge themselves under the water, and they can close their nose and eat underwater.
Their stealth mode again.
Yes.
That they can
They're
eat
very
underwater.
curious animal, as you can see.
Wilson's back.
They love attention, and if you give them a few minutes, they'll be right back and say, "Hey, we want some loving too."
I love it. So show us real quick. There's the swamp and then the river.
Yes.
2 different kinds, but they can interbreed. And
Yes.
Wilson, the big dude, he's a swamp, right?
He's a swamp, traditional swamp type animal. Has a chevron, usually a little bit lower built legs, more for draft ability. The rivers are usually taller legged, a little bit more of a dairy aspect to their body.
This is a family operation, and then there's you've got the next generation. Seems like he is interested, or at least some of the next generation's interested in carrying on
Yes.
the mission.
Yes, we do. We have to keep things rolling, just like with the buffalo. Every year, and of course, my wife Shannon and I are getting older, and we don't move as fast as we can, but our sons do, so they can start filling in a little bit. So these are, I guess, one of the most amazing thing to me is how much like a dog they are in some ways. They're a very smart animal. The wheels are always turning. There's ability, or you have an ability to build up a certain amount of trust. I mean, I wouldn't be doing this with an animal that's 1,200 pounds, and these horns, they don't look super sharp, but they're sharp as a razor blade type thing. But you build up a certain amount of trust, and you know, this is fine. I'm fine with it. We're good with it.
Well, I
But it
love
works both ways. They trust us and we trust them. And this is our goal for our animals like this. This is how we want them. And buffalo, they're more than willing to please. They just want to know what you want them to do.
This really is just being up close with them. It is a different, and I love cattle too, don't get me wrong, but it is a different feel. There's a completely different like air around the herd. From the water buffalo pastures to my new buddy Walt's processing facility and meat market, we're gonna learn how processing looks a little bit different in a small town and how they can embrace the retail side to enhance the community.
I went from place to place to place, and they ended up.
What are we looking at?
This is a full carcass breakdown.
Okay.
So basically, we take them out a half at a time, and then we start breaking it down. He's working on a chuck right now. That's your rib loin right over there. That's your T-bone. This right here has been exposed to air for roughly 21 days. So all of this needs to come off, and you can see how it's kind of gotten into the meat.
Yeah.
It starts to permeate. So beef with really good fat cover, they age really well. When they don't have fat cover, you're starting to lose more and more meat because that starts to penetrate deeper and deeper into that meat.
What does the dry aging add to the meat? What does it do?
So the enzymes start to break it down and it makes it more tender, but you're also losing all the moisture. So the big packers, the people that are processing thousands of beef a day, they figured out that if they rapidly chill it and they process it right then they sell you the water.
It weighs more.
What we want to do is let that water come out of those animals. That way, for a pound of hamburger meat that you buy from us, it's a pound of hamburger meat.
They're huge. It's just a whole different look to it. And so then this is just taken out here into the table, and then
Yep, so we drop it off the carcass drop, and then you make your first cut. That is 1/2 of beef that we broke down today, this morning. So this is going to be all of the trim that comes from it. We'll end up grinding this, but I wet age a lot of stuff. So even the ground beef, full way to the package, and then we sell it ourselves.
do I smell smoke?
Yeah, so I'm cooking bacon right now.
Get us there on that, get us. Oh my God. All right, Walt, so we got connected because of water buffalo, but I am just completely blown away with the processing and then the retail component that you got, but really curious on to how you got into the processing to begin with.
So basically it was lack of quality in processing. So when COVID hit, there was a bottleneck in processing, volume increased, people started wanting to really push product out, and gristle and hamburger meat is not agreeable. I don't agree with it. I think that there are controls that you can put in place to mitigate it becoming a problem, and I think that a lot of people just don't care about it. They want to push it out as fast as they can. They don't want to take the time to remove all of the connective tissues and stuff in animals, and that's kind of what we specialize in. That's what we want to do.
So earlier when we were talking at the processing facility, you had mentioned the kind of different stages, like the super big guys, and then the medium sized, and then what you refer to as like the artisan processor. What's the difference there in your vision, especially that middle to the artisan sizes?
So the middle is, they're trying to be big, but they're not quite there. And I think that even in the middle, you're going to lose quality. You can't really keep your hand on quality without being as small as we are. You know, if you increase volume, and you're chasing numbers, then you're not ever going to get the quality that you're after. I'm after, every cut needs to be great. All the hamburger meat needs to be of the highest quality. And I know that's crazy that I keep hitting on that, but that is literally what drives this business.
Yeah.
I mean, People think that hamburger meat is the trash. It's just the trim. It's what we throw all the trash in. It's just not. It's not the truth.
It's not the truth. Not when it's good stuff, right?
Right,
Not when it's
right.
good stuff. And you had something else you'd mentioned, and I'd heard this a couple times, but like you re-emphasized it. When we're looking at ground, like at a grocery store, that could be. You said what, like
2,000 DNA.
2,000 different DNA.
So what I've read is a processing facility that processes thousands of heads a day. So they take all of those trim components and they put them in big combos and they send them to facilities that do nothing but grind. Well, they're not going to separate any of those lots. They're going to do a combined lot and they're going to say, okay, this 3,000 head are this lot.
On this smaller processing scale, do you feel like that is a key that can be replicated? So to break up the centralized model, I mean, that's really what you're talking about when we're talking about thousands and thousands of head at a time, is that centralized food. But what I am finding is like what you're doing is a way to decentralize. You had mentioned that you never lose control of that animal. Like it never leaves from the time of the processing all the way through, like you have complete control. Is this something that can be just replicated across the country?
So at one point it was. So, you know, I guess it's kind of cyclical. People find the convenience of being able to go to a major grocery chain and buy whatever they need. You know, there's millions of people across the country that think their groceries come from the back of the store. They don't even know, we don't need farms because I get my groceries from, you know, H-E-B or something like that. When I was younger, they were starting to shut down. But if you went back, you know, a couple, 10, 20 years before that, there was a small processing facility in every town. But the big four, you know, they kind of cornered the market and they pushed all those people out of business, you know. It's really hard for us to compete on prices.
Yeah.
We can't. I can beat them on quality 10 times out of 10, but I just can't. You know, there's no way that you can compete. And I really think that people are starting to pay more attention to where their food comes from. You know, when they ship products overseas, they have them processed there because it's pennies on the dollar to get them processed. And then they ship them back. And then they label it, you know, country of origin is United States. And people are really starting to pay attention to like where their food comes from, you know.
And those labeling, that can get really tricky. We visited with Gabe Brown, and he went into this whole talk about greenwashing, and it's the labels can be confusing on top of just not understanding it.
They do it purposely.
They do. I agree wholeheartedly. One thing that I am really admiring about you is you have taken the processing, but also tried to add by having the retail component in what it is your hometown, small town in Arkansas. I grew up in small town Arkansas. You're providing a service, products, and jobs. So like what kind of an impact have you seen on the small town of Horatio?
Man, I see the quality of the food that they get to eat. Really, that's the major thing. We buy a lot of produce in season from local producers, you know, straight out of gardens. We buy local beef from producers around this area. The jobs have really helped. We've got, you know, 14 employees now. That's a pretty big impact.
That's a big impact.
Like we're the third largest employer in the county or in the city. Anyway.
Yeah.
So.
It's beautiful. That economic impact, the building community, it's beautiful. And like the quality, like everything you've let me taste has been amazing. And, you know, really something else that stands out is the color of the meat. Is like what y'all are doing is not the same color meat I've seen everywhere else.
So I'm not going to say that they add anything because that's a pretty touchy subject. You know, technically by USDA standards, you're not supposed to be allowed to introduce anything other than what's already in the meat. You know, so they're not, I don't think they're loading them up with formaldehyde or anything like that. I think it's just the form of processing that they do. So the more air that reaches meat makes it bloom. So if you look at like vacuum seal hamburger meat or vacuum seal steaks, they look kind of dull.
Yeah.
But when you cut that package and you let them get to the air, the oxygen actually reacts with the meat and it makes it red again. So I don't know what they do to keep it that red in the store, but I can't say that they're adding things to it. I just know that there's a lot of water in that meat.
Well, brother, thank you so much for taking the time to visit and show us around, and cannot wait to see what all we're able to figure out, not just water buffalo.
No. Come down, check us out anytime.
It's just been a blast having my new buddy Walt out and seeing how they are literally sowing prosperity right here in Arkansas.